The world once again found itself on edge, as reports emerged of a strike targeting Israel's northern port city of Haifa, an event that immediately reverberated far beyond the region itself. This was not just another exchange in a long-running conflict. It unfolded at a moment when ceasefire discussions were actively underway, amplifying both the shock and the implications. Haifa is not simply a city. It is one of Israel's most critical economic and strategic hubs, central to trade, energy infrastructure, and naval operations. Any threat to it carries consequences that ripple across military strategy, economic stability, and global geopolitics. The timing of the strike, coinciding with fragile diplomatic efforts, suggests not just escalation, but a potential shift in how this conflict is being conducted. The central question now is whether this incident represents a contained spike in violence or the opening phase of a much broader confrontation. To understand how events reached this point, one must look at the deeper historical context. For years, Israel and Iran have engaged in what analysts often describe as a shadow war, a prolonged period of indirect confrontation carried out through proxies, intelligence operations, and targeted strikes. Iran has expanded its influence through allied groups across Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, and beyond, while Israel has consistently sought to prevent Iranian military entrenchment near its borders. Over time, this conflict has followed a pattern of escalation cycles: strikes, retaliation, denials, and temporary quiet, each round more intense than the last. These cycles gradually eroded the boundaries that once contained the conflict, setting the stage for more direct engagement. Recent developments accelerated this trajectory. Regional tensions had already been rising due to conflicts in Gaza, instability along the Lebanon border, and broader disruptions across the Middle East. Against this backdrop, diplomatic efforts led by the United States attempted to introduce a structured ceasefire framework. However, these efforts struggled to gain traction. Iranian leadership signaled skepticism, and hostilities continued even as negotiations were being discussed publicly. This combination, ongoing military activity alongside fragile diplomacy, created an environment where escalation became not just possible, but likely. The reported strike on Haifa emerged from this volatile mix, signaling a potential transition from indirect confrontation to more direct engagement. The details of the event itself remain complex and, in some areas, contested. Reports indicate that projectiles, likely advanced missiles or drones, were launched toward northern Israel, with Haifa identified as a key target. Israeli defense systems were activated, intercepting some threats while others reportedly reached their intended areas. Israeli officials emphasized both the limited physical damage and the seriousness of the escalation, framing the incident as evidence of Iran pushing beyond established boundaries. Iran's position, however, appears more nuanced. While not always directly claiming responsibility in a centralized manner, Iranian messaging suggests that any such actions are responses to Israeli operations, particularly those perceived as undermining ceasefire efforts. This divergence in narratives highlights a critical feature of modern conflict. Competing interpretations shape not only public perception but also strategic decision-making. What is known is that a strike occurred, that defensive systems were engaged, and that both sides are presenting the event in ways that support their broader strategic goals. What remains uncertain includes the full extent of the damage, the exact systems used, and whether this action was intended as a limited signal or part of a larger coordinated effort. These uncertainties are not trivial. They are central to how each side will respond. If interpreted as a warning, escalation might remain controlled. If viewed as a threshold breach, the conflict could rapidly intensify. The choice of Haifa as a target is particularly significant. Economically, the port is a lifeline for Israel, facilitating trade and supporting key industries. Any disruption, real or perceived, can have immediate economic consequences. The region also houses critical energy infrastructure, including refineries and distribution systems essential for both civilian and military operations. Even the threat to these facilities can influence global energy markets, as instability in the Middle East often leads to fluctuations in oil prices and broader economic uncertainty. Militarily, Haifa hosts important naval assets, making it a central component of Israel's maritime security and operational reach. A strike on such a location is not merely symbolic. It demonstrates capability and intent, altering the deterrence dynamics between Israel and Iran. Geographically, Haifa's proximity to Lebanon and Syria places it within a highly sensitive strategic corridor. Hezbollah's presence in Lebanon and Iranian influence in Syria mean that any escalation in this region has the potential to spread quickly across borders. This interconnectedness amplifies the risks, as actions in one area can trigger responses in another, creating a cascading effect that is difficult to contain. From an operational perspective, Israel may respond by increasing air and missile defense deployments, enhancing naval readiness, and potentially conducting preemptive or retaliatory strikes. For Iran and its allies, the strike serves as a demonstration of reach and precision, reinforcing their ability to target critical infrastructure. Expert analysis and intelligence assessments have begun to frame this event within a broader strategic context. Many analysts view the strike as a calculated escalation rather than a spontaneous act. The choice of target, the timing during ceasefire discussions, and the demonstration of capability all suggest deliberate planning. Military experts warn that targeting infrastructure associated with civilian life marks a shift in the nature of the conflict, introducing new risks and making escalation less predictable. Think tanks and policy experts emphasize that if such actions become normalized, future confrontations could escalate more rapidly and with fewer constraints. There is also concern that this could signal a move away from proxy-based conflict toward more direct engagement, increasing the likelihood of wider regional involvement. At the same time, alternative interpretations complicate the narrative. From Iran's perspective, the strike may be framed as a response to Israeli actions, particularly those perceived as violating or undermining ceasefire efforts. Questions also remain about the status of the ceasefire itself, whether it was fully operational or still in negotiation. This ambiguity creates space for competing claims and reduces clarity regarding accountability. Additionally, the role of proxy groups introduces further uncertainty. If the strike involved actors operating with some degree of autonomy, the chain of command becomes less clear, making it harder to predict future actions. There is also the possibility that what was intended as limited signaling could be interpreted as a major escalation, highlighting the role of perception in driving conflict dynamics. Domestic political considerations add another layer of complexity. Both Israel and Iran operate within internal environments where leadership decisions are influenced by public opinion and political pressures. Strong responses may be driven not only by strategic calculations but also by the need to maintain credibility and support at home. This interplay between domestic and international factors can accelerate escalation. As leaders seek to balance internal expectations with external realities, the global consequences of this situation are profound. Economically, the threat to critical infrastructure in the Middle East can influence global markets almost immediately. Oil prices may rise due to perceived risk, shipping costs can increase, and supply chains may be disrupted. These effects are not confined to the region. They extend to consumers worldwide, affecting fuel prices, goods, and overall economic stability. Militarily, the potential for broader engagement raises the possibility of increased troop deployments, expanded defense coordination, and heightened readiness across multiple fronts. The involvement of external powers, particularly the United States, could further complicate the situation, as Washington may be drawn into deeper regional engagement to maintain stability and protect its interests. Geopolitically, major powers are closely monitoring developments. Russia may view the situation as an opportunity to challenge Western influence, while China may focus on the implications for global trade and energy security. European nations, already dealing with economic pressures, may face additional challenges if instability leads to further disruptions. Regional actors, including Gulf states, must consider the possibility that their own infrastructure could become targets, prompting defensive measures and strategic adjustments. For individuals, the impact may seem indirect but is very real. Rising oil prices can lead to higher fuel costs, increased shipping expenses can drive up consumer prices, and broader economic instability can affect jobs and livelihoods. This is how a conflict in one part of the world can influence daily life in another, illustrating the interconnected nature of modern geopolitics. Looking ahead, the situation remains highly uncertain. Key factors to watch include Israel's response, Iran's signaling, the role of the United States, and the activation of additional regional fronts. Market reactions will also provide early indicators of how seriously the global community views the risk. Primary scenarios emerge. In one, escalation remains controlled, with both sides engaging in limited actions while keeping diplomatic channels open. In the other, retaliation crosses critical thresholds, leading to multi-front conflict and deeper involvement from external powers. Ultimately, this moment represents a turning point or, at least the potential for one. Whether it becomes the peak of a temporary escalation or the beginning of a wider conflict will depend on decisions being made in real time. The stakes are high, not only for the region but for the global system as a whole. What is clear is that the situation is evolving rapidly, and its consequences will be felt far beyond the immediate area of conflict.